Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Pod Piper is here to decentralize the internet. Well, sort of. That's all we're going to talk about, and then some on today's Silicon Valley After Show here on AFTERBUZZ TV, so stay tuned.
You're tuning into the destination for TV superfan discussion, AFTERBUZZ TV. And now, let the buzz begin.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Silicon Valley. As all things in the Valley, things pivot. And here at AFTERBUZZ TV, we've pivoted slightly. Not because we had to. Well, I guess we sort of did. The old hosts of the Silicon Valley After Show, even though they love the show and still do love the show and still would love to be here with you guys, life is as such that their lives have pivoted. And
they got jobs at Hooli, I heard, Phil, and they left.
That's right. So, although just for avoidance of doubt, they did not actually leave AFTERBUZZ. They are very much a part of AFTERBUZZ. However, they could not do the show anymore. So therefore, myself, Phil Svitek, and Jeff Graham.
What up, everyone? My name is Jeff Graham. You guys can find me on Twitter at Jeffrey C. Graham. Phil, I think this is our first official after show together, which is crazy because we've worked so closely for a year and a half. But
I know. We're insiders of AFTERBUZZ TV, and we're here to talk Silicon Valley, a show that Jeff and I oftentimes joke about.
I've been told I'm a bit of a Jared, just so you all know. Whether or not that's a good or a bad thing, hopefully a good thing. That's my nickname in the office. So
he is very much Jared from Silicon Valley. So we apologize. We won't spend too much time. Again, we have, unfortunately this season's going to be different because it's us hosting it. And so we don't knock those guys. We think they did a wonderful job. We'll try to do the best of what they did, but at the same time, be true to who we are. So, give us a shot.
Absolutely.
We promise to do as much as we can, bring in some guests when we can, and offer as much insight as we can. So, before we start with Pod Piper, I figured we'd start with Hooli.
I love it.
So we have Gavin Belson and Jack Barker,
yes.
two people that I despise a little bit. What did you think of that dynamic?
I thought this was hilarious. I mean, I think the decision to bring Gavin and Jack together was very wise.
Jeff has some hair in his mouth. It's kind of funny. He is literally Jared from Silicon Valley.
I really couldn't be more Jared from Silicon Valley, could I? Anyway, so Jack and Gavin, this is a super fun dynamic. I think it was really smart for the writers to bring them together because when we saw them come together with N-Frame and Hooli, we knew immediately that something was going to bring them apart because that's just too big of egos to keep them, getting along. And I think Mike Judge, who of course created this show, is obsessed with corporate satire. I mean, if you look at his history of the shows, we have Office Space, we have even like Beavis and Butthead had elements of corporate satire in them. So I think having like these two kind of big shot CEOs, butt heads, using the analogy of how quick will my private jet get to the location I need to get is just such amazing, subtle, hilarious writing. And it worked very well for me.
It did. That's the satire of it being, for me, the fact that, when you have two really great figures, you'd think like, okay, that the whole end goal would be to build an amazing product.
Yes.
And no, it's not. It's just to showcase your power.
Right.
And so the one part that, I obviously understood the intent of it, but I just don't understand where it's fully heading is by promoting him downstairs.
Yeah, that was a funny twist. It is interesting. I kind of got the impression we'll get there, but in some ways, I think this episode moved us a lot for a season premiere, but in some ways, I have a lot of questions about what this season's going to be about. How did you feel about just this episode as a whole, as a premiere?
I liked it. I mean, I don't think it needed to. We dived right into it. I hate the whole idea of that we have to kind of reset and tell everyone where we are. No, it's just we're in the middle of it. We're going to move forward, and you're going to be excited by it.
Yeah, I totally agree. It was interesting though because there was an element of after having waited a year, I was a little slow on some of the uptake on oh yeah. It was just I appreciated that they trusted us to just dive right back into it, but it didn't have some of the usual beats and familiar setups we're used to with the season premiere of this show. But yeah, overall I thought this was a great first episode of the season, and I really did, to get back to your question, appreciate how they were true to how Gavin and Jack really would interact as not partners but close working coworkers at Hooli now that the N-Frame deal is kind of buzzing.
Yeah, and what I love about this is just, as you said, the political office satire of it all, and the fact that with Belson he his security minion. He tasks him with testing it out, but wait, we have to get the average because of wind speed and all that. And still on average, we would venture to say it's 28 minutes faster to go first to where they're at, then go to Colorado. You know.
This was great writing. I mean, the show, I will say for a comedy show, Silicon Valley's always been very heavy on plot. Like, a lot of stuff happens in this show. But they do a really good job of writing that stuff in a funny way. And I think, yeah, like using, again, like routes of a private jet and like the efficiency of obviously this $1 million endeavor is a great way to kind of subtly point out the dynamic between Jack and Gavin, which I thought was really funny.
Absolutely. And I mean, the fact of it is, you know, you sort of start to wonder then, okay, well, if all they really do is work 10 minutes, but in the 10 minutes, they could literally make the company $10 billion in 1 year.
Right.
Okay, well, that's their value.
Yeah.
And so the rest of it, they could fool around versus like everyone else has to work, you know, 40 hours a week and they barely bring whatever X%
Right.
into the company yearly. So that's another debate for another day.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see how this dynamic plays with both Richard's new endeavor and the Pied Piper journey, because really that B plot was very independent of the other plot this episode. I think it just served to create a dynamic between Gavin and Jack, but to me didn't really comment on any of the developments we were seeing over at the incubator. So I'll be curious to see why we saw that dynamic between Jack and Gavin develop.
Yeah, it'll be. We'll see. You know, they always have a. I would venture to say we won't really get. We'll get little subtle hints, but it'll be like episode 3 or 4 before we really start to know. Oh, that's what it is.
Agreed.
It won't be resolved, but we'll start to know. Okay, great.
Right.
In terms of Pod Piper, the Piper chat. They've sunk as low as they can when you pretend to be an Uber.
Oh, this was so funny. What a strong season opener, I thought. I think this was so well written. And first of all, just using Uber as a way to make a pitch is the most San Francisco thing that could ever happen. Like, this was just a great decision on the part of the writers to make the pitch happen in a pre-designated Uber. And I love how it brought in all 5 of our main guys. And this conversation was just so funny to me.
Well, I mean, here's, you know, in LA, someone gets similar Uber rides, not necessarily to that nature, but in the sense, hey, what do you do? I'm a Hollywood producer.
Exactly.
Oh, well, I've got a script for you.
Yeah.
Great. I didn't solicit you.
Right. It is it's a very maybe even just California thing because there's so much traffic in this state. But yeah, this was just so funny. And again, a smart way to remind us of what we're jumping back into, which is, of course, Pied Piper's new direction with this video chat app. I think my favorite quote in here was when Richard is kind of desperately trying to describe his user acquisition. And then, of course, Jared pipes in and says, "Richard, but that's Facebook level growth." I just thought it was really funny.
Yeah, I mean, nothing about the pitch was organic. A great pitch, but nothing about it was organic in terms of an actual conversation.
Yeah, there were moments when they had the investor, then moments when they lost him, then moments when they had him again. But of course, once they found out that Richard was the Richard Hendricks who tried to use fraud to negotiate a huge deal, everything went under.
Well, even that, you know, I give them credit in the sense that even when the guy walked away, he gave him his card.
Yeah.
So for all intents and purposes, they kind of won.
Yeah. Do you think we'll see him come back, or do you think he was just a device to get us going again?
I think he could come back.
I think so too.
I think he could. And, you know, it was, as we'll talk about in a little bit, it's a great device to show that while they're sort of rock bottom, there is an upside to it. Mm-hmm. Now, one of the next things we're going to start to get into after this is the fact that, okay, it's a safe endeavor.
Right.
You know, and kind of how much do you put stock into that? But at the same time,
when you say it's safe, you mean like a commercially viable, kind of accessible?
Yeah, I mean it's nothing revolution. I mean,
right. I hear what you're saying.
I don't know. It's tough for me to, I guess, judge the merit of it because of the way the story structures it.
Right.
Because obviously it's a very useful tool.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that's never been done, and so there's that. Obviously, there's a market value to it. But at the same time, it's the most novel idea ever created.
Right. Good.
It's not like you're just creating a better broom when instead you could create a vacuum.
There it is.
So it's kind of in that same way, but not to knock it, I think it's great. So let's talk about what happens at the house with Dinesh and Guilfoyle and all those guys.
Dinesh is getting some credit finally. I feel like this whole show, Dinesh just kind of gotten shit on. Pardon my French, but this is an HBO show. And I feel like one of the running gags is that Dinesh never gets the credit he deserves. And this is kind of a big moment for Dinesh. You know, he is the author of the video chat app, of course, using Richard's algorithm. But this was refreshing to me to see Dinesh get some of his due credit.
He was, and I like how he did stand up to to him in terms of saying, like, you know, you just don't like the idea because I wrote it. And you know, Richard, it's not just because it's not your idea, it's not what you want to go with. Like, you can't admit that's just still a good idea.
Right.
As a side tangent to that, I like his interaction with Guilfoyle of like, oh, you're right. Yes. How could I have next time? I'll foresee that my great idea will spawn thousands upon thousands of users and make it better. You're right. I should have done better.
How did you react to Richard being so clearly jealous of Dinesh's new ownership and the stakes of the ideas at Pied Piper Ship? You know, how did you feel Richard handled that?
It's a tough question only because, at least where the episode goes, it doesn't turn out to be a question of envy. It turns out to be more of a question of he knows he's meant for something deeper and greater, and something else could be done with it. And so, yeah, it's not a jealousy thing. It's just something deeper.
Yeah, to me, it's like the classic example of you can't ever crush an entrepreneurial spirit. Like, entrepreneurs are, at their essence, they are who they are, and trying to get Richard to fit into this new paradigm at Pied Piper where, you know, his algorithm isn't the central focus of their app development would be kind of trying to like fit a square peg into a round hole. And his decision to try to take ownership over the app by increasing the definition of the video quality by 10% was very funny to me and indicative of Richard's inability to kind of suspend leadership and what's such a close idea to him.
Yeah. Well, again, to that point, the fact that he did come up with those ideas and was like, hey, Dinesh should be the new CEO. It's his idea. Says a lot, you know, because he could have just been like, no, he could have thrown a hissy fit, for lack of a better term, and that's not going to help anyone or be right for anybody.
I was surprised by like the level of maturity we saw for all the guys by the end of the episode. I personally thought Bighead was going to become the CEO, and I almost wish that would have happened because I can never get enough of Bighead. I think he might be like secretly one of my favorite characters on the show.
Not my idea.
I know. Yeah, my favorite moment with Bighead this episode, quick tangent, was when they're trying to discuss, like, well, of course, there's another CEO who could be available. Rumor has it he's been on the cover of some of the most major tech publications in this country. And, of course, Bighead is reading Wired with his face on, and he goes...
You think he was reading his article?
Probably, without even realizing it. He's like, who's this guy? Yeah. But then, of course, he goes, who are you guys talking about? Which I thought was just... He's constantly one of my favorite characters on the show.
Absolutely. He is a very great character. And I love that his dad is involved, and it's good to know that. I think ultimately that there's going to be a fine balance between sort of the dad being involved and at the same time not crushing Pied Piper.
Agreed.
Despite obviously.
Yeah, I'm having trouble predicting what's going to happen there because I think Mr. Bighead, I forget his last name, it's Bighetti, I think, but I'm having trouble seeing. He's an interesting character because I'm having trouble reading him and predicting him. So
yeah,
it'll be interesting, most certainly.
It will be, but I think he could get behind Dinesh, and I think he could get behind all the stuff.
Yeah, with this, I agree. Yeah,
and I loved the inclusion that, of course, it's been in the incubator, so I get 10% of your new company. So,
Such an Erlich move.
Which I think at that point Richard just was like, all right, fine, I'm not gonna fight over this. Let's just, I get to do what I do, so great.
Do you like this choice for the show?
It's. They always have a great way of writing within the characters' voices, which is to say, plot and action become synonymous in that way. Everyone thinks it's a little bit different, but you have to understand it from the point of view of the characters, and I think it's spot on in terms of what they're doing.
I completely agree. It's spot on. I have a little bit of fear about what it means to separate Richard and the guys. But I think it's about time. I mean, we're in season 4, and I'm hoping and trusting, because I love the show so much, that it is going to be a choice that pays off and injects some much needed like freshness in the formula that we're used to.
Well, they're still going to work in the same house.
Yeah, Richard will still be in that incubator. You're right, which will create some interesting dynamics.
There's physical connection.
True.
But, and who knows? I mean, that could be kind of the same thing of like, hey, do you mind help out looking at this code, and vice versa? You know what I mean?
Right.
Where it's like there's not really a full separation of work.
Yeah, and I guess there will be inevitable crossover because they're still using Richard's algorithms. So yeah. Here's to hoping. I'm trusting it's going to be a good season. So
a couple of that's the overall plot points. I did enjoy Monica. But by the way, they use that for Jack as well, in terms of the button.
Oh,
he's not only is he in Shitsville, Hooli Shitsville.
Yeah.
But he's across from the men's bathroom.
Oh, I missed that button in the sub basement of Hooli.
Yes. Apparently, every place has an office, except for AfterBuzz, apparently, that is directly across from the men's bathroom. And that's where you put the bad employees.
If I mess up, Phil, I'm trusting that you'll move me right across from the men's bathroom, so I better keep up the good work. We have to talk about Russ, too.
Let's talk about Russ. That was a great meeting.
Oh, in terms of like power players on this show, Russ might be my favorite because he's just such a relentless douchebag. But it owes to the performance, but it's so funny. And there's always small things that prevent Russ from just going into full hateable douchebag and making him into fully lovable douchebag. And this scene was a perfect example of that.
It's always good. Everyone needs a mentor, and unfortunately, in the case of Richard, doesn't have really that many great mentors. I mean, Erlich is a mentor, and just like with Russ, he says his bits of wisdom, but it's masked in God knows what. Same thing with him. But I'm glad that Richard was able to deduce what was actually his feelings and not just go them blindly. And he made a very, as we said, level-headed decision that affected everybody positively, including himself.
Right.
Whether or not it works out remains to be seen, but at least he didn't go into it like, okay, guys, this is what we're doing. You got to be on board, blah, blah, blah.
Right. And I appreciated that Russ encouraged Richard to pursue what matters. It was interesting that piece of advice came from him. And it's an example of how I think Russ is a bit of a more complex character than we might give him credit for.
Is he strictly just inspired by the grandfather right now? Would he have
Maybe.
ever said this if his grandfather had not come out of the closet?
I think that might be my favorite line. You're trying to date a woman, but deep in your heart, you know you're gay. My grandfather just came out of the closet. It's beautiful. It's very inspiring. Good old Russ.
Oh, man. That was definitely one of the funniest moments, if not the funniest moment of today's episode.
Agreed. He's a winner for me, and I can't get enough of him. I will say more Russ equals good for me, so I hope we see him more this season.
That's right, Jeff. No matter how many women you bang, if you just want to bang a dude, you won't be happy. Just saying.
Oh.
That goes for you at home.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
Would have loved to have seen Lori Breen this episode. I hope we see her this season. She'll have her moments. She will. I think Lori's hilarious. And I will say, this is such a dude-driven show for good reason, but I always appreciate, we did see Monica this episode, but it's nice.
Monica's a girl's girl. In the best sense. Like Lori, she might as well be more masculine than anyone.
She is the most emotionless, logical thinker, which is funny. It's a nice reinvention of some of the typical tropes we get of like the short-haired corporate woman. I think we're used to kind of like the Bryce Dallas Howard in Jurassic World version of that character. And I think Lori really reinvents some of the rules we're used to seeing with a character like that. So
it would be fun to see her in that conversation about flight plans.
Yeah, she would have been a great moderator. Well, it depends on the Coriolis effect owing to the flight.
All right. Shall we get into predictions?
Let's do it.
And now, your AfterBuzz TV predictions.
So we got a season preview. So we don't know how much of this will actually happen in the next episode, but I'm excited.
Honestly, I did not see the season preview, so shame on me. My
Well, then you have nothing to look forward to.
well, I can make predictions though.
All right. Well, you make predictions, and I'll tell you what I'm excited about based on the preview.
I do think that Richard doing his own thing is going to inject a new sense of buoyancy and freshness into this show. Season 3 I thought was really good, but I'm not sure it was for me the strongest season of the show because I almost felt like the show was ruthlessly regressive with the guys, if that makes sense, where there were so many hurdles and impediments to their progress that it got a little exhausting. So I'd be interested not only to see Richard pursue his own thing, but maybe to create a sense of healthy competition between the Pied Piper guys and Richard's new venture.
Huh.
So I'm looking forward to that. And I also, as I mentioned, I don't know what to predict with Jack and Gavin because...
They didn't show much in terms of that.
Okay. And I think I'm predicting Richard's going to hire some members for his team, and he's going to bring on a female engineer.
Okay. That's interesting. I can't necessarily say whether that's true or not. I mean, based on the previews, what I interpreted as is the fact that, first off, it's funny to me because Dinesh does a whole press tour, and he changes his image.
Nice.
Which is funny. I think that'll happen in, like, the next episode or two, to be honest. And where we're going to go from there, it'll be interesting to see him sort of maybe perhaps crumple that company. Not too much, but enough where it's like, Richard's going to start to make his way. And it seems to me, based off the previews, that people get really excited, including the team, to get behind Richard's idea.
Yeah, I think so too.
And I think for someone like Guilfoyle, who hates the government, he's a self-described anarchist.
True.
That's going to make him happy.
Yeah, there is kind of an anarchy sensibility behind Richard's idea.
Yeah.
And it is a timely topic because I feel like the internet in general is a very anti-authority culture. So I'm interested to see how the show, I hope the show, as it does best, kind of creates some meta commentary and comments on America as a whole with this new internet idea, which I think it will. I trust Mike Judge here.
Yeah, so I'm excited. So we'll see what ends up happening. But that's all we got for now. Thank you guys, as always, for joining us. Because it is the season premiere, we would love to know your thoughts and opinions. Where do you see this going? What do you think of this episode? What do you think the funniest moments of this episode were? All the standard usual stuff. Also, please let us know how we can improve, what you guys like.
Yeah.
We'll continue to build and get better. Because we love the show and we love talking about it with each other, but also with you guys, and not only this episode, but future episodes as well. And, to that same token, though, don't be afraid to tweet the old hosts. I'm sure they'll appreciate it. They still watch Silicon Valley, so they can still talk with you just the same. But for better or worse, we're your official Silicon Valley AfterBuzz TV after show hosts.
Absolutely, guys, and I'm one of them. My name is Jeff Graham. You can find me on Twitter at Jeffrey C. Graham. We're doing our best to get some more blood on the panel, so I'd love to get a girl on here. Speaking of a male-centric show, it'd be great to get a female on our panel, but we're working on it. The show just premiered, so we'll keep doing it. But for now, it's just me and Phil, and we appreciate you guys tuning in. In the meantime, if you guys want to keep following me, you can do so online at Jeffrey C. Graham. I host a show on Fridays called The Unproduced Table Read, where we're reading some of Hollywood's hottest unproduced pilots and features, and we're reading a half-hour comedy this week at 10 a.m. on Friday, so tune into that on Popcorn Talk.
There you go. And for all my various platforms, projects, just go to philsvitek.com. That has all the stuff. And, of course, keep checking back in with AfterBuzzTV.com for all your favorite after shows. Bye.
Bye.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
See you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.